Okay.
All right, welcome. This is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. It's good to be back here at FlintTalkRadio.com. Got John in the studios making it happen for me. I'm flying solo today.
Yep. Everybody's gone, huh?
Everyone's gone. It's too cold to come out.
Yeah, they're all hibernated.
I think so. Now I'll give a shout out to Toby. Hope you're feeling better. Chad, hope you're not lost in the garden. Find your way back out. But no, it's good to be here. Glad to be with you guys. We've got some information about what's happening down at the Compassion Club. Let you know what's up there, and then let you know what's going on with medical marijuana here in the state of Michigan. As far as club stuff going on, I know we've got our fall food drive just wrapping up here. We've got a benefit dinner coming up, or benefit breakfast, I meant to say, coming up this Saturday. So if you could make it down to the club, we'd love to have you. We'll be serving food with all our members, and a small donation to help go feed the babies at the soup kitchen. They get a lot of food donated down there at the soup kitchen, and of course normally it's mostly for adult use. You don't really think about it, but babies have specific needs, so we're collecting baby food, baby items like cereal and Gerber food, that type of thing, and then also we're collecting monetary donations if you can help us out with that, and then that way we'll be able to donate that to the soup kitchen specifically for the infants and babies that are that come to the soup kitchen for food. Some of the mothers down there actually trying to mash up the servings that they give so that they can actually feed their babies, and this will help them out a lot by giving them infant specific food. So if you could help us out with that, just come on down Saturday, get a great breakfast, and then also make a small donation and help those children out. This Sunday I want to make mention we have a upcoming team that we sponsored, a hockey team, just a little amateur team. They'll be playing out at the Lapeer Ice Palace at 5:30, and that'll be a good game for you to attend to. Should be lots of fun. Help come out and support the team, and should be good fun for the whole family. So make it out to the Lapeer Ice Palace if you can on Sunday. Again, that's at 5:30. So I know that we've got a few other donation type things coming up for the month of December. We're just trying to sponsor a couple families that are needy here in the area of Flint. So we can appreciate your donations with that, so we can assist them. And then I know we also have another project that we've been working on with the local Methodist Church in Genesee Township there. They do a thing where they give out Christmas dinners to families across the county that they've identified that are in need. And we'd like to help them out every year with that when we can. So we'll be doing the same thing this year, helping to purchase some of those meals to help feed them families, give them a nice Christmas dinner, something the whole family can get together, get around, and we're glad to be a part of that. Also, we do a donation to the American Disabled Vets Fund. It helps the disabled vets. 100% of the funds that are donated to that go directly to the disabled vets, and we're proud to be a part of that as well. And that's pretty awesome for a charity to give out 100%. Not have the administrative costs and things like that involved. This goes to help them out directly, and gets those disabled vets who are more needy, don't have everything that they deserve, certainly, and we're able to help them out a little bit with that during the Christmas season. So glad to be a part of that as well. So good things going down at the Genesee County Compassion Club. Definitely thankful to be a part of that and have all our members contributing to that. Definitely appreciate all their support and the generosity that they have during the Christmas season, really throughout the whole year. I know that we've got our soup kitchen coming up here the end of this month. That's going to be on a Saturday like normally. We serve down there, start at 2 o'clock, get everything prepped, start serving at 4 o'clock, and we could appreciate, or we would appreciate your help with that if you can. Hold on a second here, I'll get you the date on that. It always slips my mind. I believe it's going to be the 21st, so it's coming up here a week from this Saturday. And again, that's down at the North End Soup Kitchen. You can meet us at the Compassion Club. Like I said, at 2 o'clock we get started, so meet us over at the club just before that. We'll carpool over to the Soup Kitchen on Stewart and see what we can do to help them guys out. So come on down if you can. Appreciate that. And all right, we got some news going on. Yesterday at the Capitol, they had the secondary part of the House hearing on bills. There's the 660 bill. There's also they're calling it the Provisioning Center Act, and then also the Medibles bill, if you will. So all of these had conditional or additional review done on them yesterday at the Capitol. I think things all went as planned. Looks like the House committee did pass these bills out of the House to be referred to the floor, and they could be voting on them, here within the next week. So look forward to that happening. Call your House representative now if you'd like to have your voice heard. It's definitely the thing to do. Get that out there. One of these bills that we've been discussing, the Provisioning Center Act, that's up for a vote, and also the Medical bill, I guess is what I would call it. This bill here allows for, pull this up here. This bill here allows for other forms of the dried flour to be included in the act, which most people would have thought that would have been the case from the get-go. There was a state court decision that kind of threw that up into the air and considered them unusable. Not necessarily excluded them from the act, but considered other forms of marijuana like edibles to be considered unusable. And so whether they are not protected by the entirety of the act kind of puts it into jeopardy. And so this bill here specifies that, and it makes it allowable, specifically by law, that these other forms are now permitted or will be permitted if this bill passes. This is definitely a good thing for the community, and one of the things that the bill also mandates is that you have to have labeling on there so that the amount of cannabis that's in the material can be properly identified. So, example, you got a plate of brownies there. Maybe you've got the plate itself of the brownies weighs, let's say, a pound. What you'd want to have labeled on there is a label that would either say what the entire amount that was put into the brownie or into the food mixture, an entire amount of cannabis that was put in there. So if you used 1 gram of concentrate, or maybe you used 4 grams of flour, whatever it would have been, plant flour that is, not cooking flour, you need to have that specifically labeled onto that item. So if it's a tray of brownies and you've got it all together in one piece, that would be one label. If you're splitting it up into individual pieces, then you would definitely need to have each individual piece labeled. And so you need to be able to figure out exactly what the proportion is there that you put in. So you might have to do some math to figure that out. So you just want to be careful in your calculations, make sure they're accurate, and then make sure that they are properly labeled. This would apply to just about anything that is not a dried flower form. If you've got regular plant buds, they're dried, maybe they're still curing, but they're intent for use in the jar and prepared and dried, completely dried, then anything that is not that typical form is going to need pretty much to require a label so that anyone could look at that and identify, here's the amount of material that's in this product. So if you've got some candies or some cookies, I already mentioned brownies, but maybe you've got some other types of concentrate available or juice, maybe some type of oil that's ingested, whatever it may be, you definitely want to have the amount that is on that or in that item listed, readily available to read on that item. So pretty clear there. It doesn't have any particular type of labeling method that has to be used. It's not like the nutritional facts on the back of a regular food product where it's all regulated exactly how it has to be laid out and spoken for people to read, but it does need to be labeled. So in your best interest in maintaining compliance with the law, definitely want to put on there how many grams it is, or milligrams if it's going with smaller amounts, and put on there exactly what is contained in this item that you now have prepared. So the other bills that passed there, and this bill here is 660. We've talked about this. This would allow pharmacies to produce, or at least to sell, medical marijuana. This is the Senate Bill 660, or the Prairie Plant Systems Bill, as some of you have been referring it to. What this would do is allow for a separate class of marijuana to be produced. It would be separate from the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. It would be produced only by state licensed centers, and they would classify a whole new form of the drug as pharmaceutical marijuana. This would be produced solely, specifically by state licensed corporations. And one of the main pushers behind the bill here, as we all know, is Prairie Plant Systems. This is the group that's trying to produce the cannabis in a mine. And the UP is the same group that runs the Health Canada program for Canadians, our neighbors to the north. Now, the bill does not take away Michigan medical marijuana law. It does not infringe on your current ability to be a patient that produces for themselves, or a caregiver that produces for a patient. It is a program that would coincide or run alongside the current program. So if this bill were to become law and actually go into effect, then what you would have is a separate system where a patient could elect, if they wanted to relinquish their current rights as a patient. They would still have to go through the registration process of going to the doctor and so forth, but then what they would do is relinquish their current medical marijuana card and then sign up onto the alternative program, which would be licensed through the state. There's no specifics on how that would be, as far as licensing fees or how long the registration is for, but it does allow for a whole separate registration process. You cannot have both as a patient. You'd have to pick one or the other, but it does give that option for patients if they wanted to acquire their cannabis from a pharmaceutical source. Now, these centers that would be licensed by the state would be producers, in fact, and then the producers would provide directly to pharmaceutical companies, not to the patient, but to the pharmaceutical companies, and then the doctor would make his prescription, and then the patient would have to still get registered through the state, but then take that prescription to a pharmaceutical place that carries that product, and then be allowed to acquire their cannabis or their medicine in whatever form the pharmacy provides it. They'd be allowed to acquire that from them for their health purposes. So it is a separate system. It definitely has some pros and cons to it. A lot of people are concerned with this and how it would interfere with the current program. And I'm not sure that it would interfere with the current program as much as people might believe, simply because of the fact that this is a patient option, an option that a patient could choose for themselves to say, hey, I do want to have mine provided. Maybe they don't have a way to produce it for themselves. Maybe they don't have a caregiver, and then they could at least acquire medication through this method if it became available. Some of the naysayers of the bill out there are saying, well, this is an attempt to thwart the current law and basically take away the rights of patients and caregivers. And currently the bill is set up so that it is an alternative program. It is a choice for the patient, and it does not take away the current rights of patients and caregivers. This is something that we could be concerned about in the future, as it did happen that way in Canada. Originally Canadians had the ability, when they passed their medical marijuana provisions, that they could produce for themselves as a patient, or they could elect a caregiver. So similar to the system that we have here in Michigan, not exactly all the same, but a similar type of program. And eventually that program was phased out in favor of this exact law that we're now passing through our House here in Michigan. So there is some concerns as to, and I would say valid concerns to that point. And this is something that we would want to look at. I mean, I think that some of the people that are supporting this bill have said, well, if we're going to have medical marijuana used as a medicine, then it should be treated like a medicine. And I don't believe that all of our medicines come from a pharmacist. I don't think that putting it through a pharmacy necessarily makes it medicine. I can understand that having the regulations behind it, the testing there, that the pharmacies may have the ability to provide, may sound comforting to those who are part of making regulations. However, it doesn't do much for the patients when it comes to really being able to select the type of medications that they may need for themselves, for their type of ailments. And I think if we had a better understanding of how this plant works and its medicinal properties, then we may be a little bit more keen to writing regulations or laws that are going to be more adapt to making sure patients get what they need versus just going to the whim of lobbyists and so forth. Some of the things that this pharmaceutical company provides, like testing and so forth, may seem good, but on the other hand, if we are only providing one or two types of medication when literally there may be thousands of different types of medications available just from this one category of medical marijuana, I think we have to take a look at that and the viability of the medication that is there, how it's going to interact with the patient, how it's going to actually perform in helping them with their ailments. I think that's really should be the main concern, and to believe that can be taken care of by simply one or two different strains. I know from experience as a caregiver and as a patient that that's not going to be the case. Oftentimes we can look at things like attrition or simply just a tolerance level. For a patient standpoint, building up a tolerance to certain profiles of cannabinoids that are present in one type of strain, that's almost certainly always going to happen. You're going to have people that are going to, maybe find it effective for a couple weeks, and then after their body adjusts to it, they may find that that type of medication isn't really working for taking care of their ailments. So just the ability to switch strains oftentimes is enough for a patient so that they can continue to find relief through using cannabis. And then also having specific strains that are geared towards helping certain types of ailments is a priority for most patients. You'll find certain patients that have to have certain types of strains available to them, or the alternative is just don't use cannabis as a medicine because of the fact that the other types of strains don't provide them with the relief that it is that they are looking for. And I know a number of patients personally that are that way, where if you don't have a certain type of strain available for them, they'll just assume go without because it doesn't provide the relief that they're looking for. And as a caregiver, I think that's something that you have to be concerned with, but it is something that you have the ability to adjust to. You have the ability to go out and find different types of cannabis, different types of strains, different types of forms of ingestion that are going to work for that patient. And that's something that a big company is not going to have the ability to do. If they've got a production run going of a certain type of strain, something that they've licensed or something that they've taken the time to possibly copyright or trademark or register or even test for that matter, if they've gone through the expenses of trying to build that type of form of cannabis, the likelihood that they're just going to switch on a whim or on a patient's request is very unlikely. Their ability to do that is probably almost zero to nil. And that's something that patients are keen to, and I think that having the current system set up the way that it is a better program for most patients because of the fact that they do have the ability to acquire from different sources so that they can get that medication it is that they're looking for. So that's the Senate Bill 660. It did pass on an 8-1 vote. Basically, it was ran through the Senate, and then now it's gone through the House committee. It should be up for a vote here in the whole House of legislation here in Michigan fairly shortly. So look to that coming down the pike. And again, call your representative if you have time to make your voice heard on that. The other bill that was passed is the Provisioning Centers Act. It was 4271. It's a House bill number. And that did pass also through committee. It looks like there's a lot of different types of things on that bill that could be said about it. We've covered that before here in the show, so I won't bore you with those details again. But it did pass through the House, and we'll have yet to see what other types of changes may or may not be made. And then as far as when it comes up for a vote in the entire House here, should be probably fairly shortly again. So a lot of different people commenting on this. And I think that you have to take a look at the current program, its abilities, its requirements, and so forth, and then have a comparison to what these bills are doing to really figure out what's going on. I know a lot of people are really strongly support this, feeling that it's going to give them the ability to maybe proceed with having a dispensary, or maybe now they feel more comfortable of opening a dispensary in areas that they previously were not allowed in. It does give local authorities or local legislators, if you will, the ability to say, hey, we don't want this in our community. So areas where it's been basically already outlawed or whatever as far as dispensaries go, I don't know that you're going to see a whole lot of change in those areas. Maybe in areas like Lansing where they had it available and it was taken away, maybe you will see a change there. And I think that's probably one of the areas where you will see change. Other areas in the state, like particularly Oakland County, where it's been heartily criticized by the authorities, I don't know that you're going to see a whole lot of change in those areas. However, we'll have yet to see. There may be some of those local smaller communities that will say, hey, we do feel comfortable with having a dispensary or a provisioning center in our town. We don't have a problem regulating it, and it gives patients a safe place to go to rather than having them deal in the back of a parking lot somewhere. So I think it could be a good thing, but we'll have yet to see how this is played out, how it will be enforced. There's a lot of regulations in this law that are sort of glossed over, if you will, and I think that in the administration of this law will be really the key, just like it has been here for the current Michigan medical marijuana law. So we have yet to see how that's going to be played out. But at any rate, it did pass through the House, and there's a comment here from Chase Bolger, the House Speaker, said that the bills are in a good place and that they're very possible this week to have a vote on. The Senate is set to adjourn for 2013 on Thursday, and any bills that don't pass, they're still alive in 2014. So at any rate, we'll see how these go. And this is from, I think I'm quoting this from, I'd like to say where it was from, but I can't say, it's not on here. Might be MLive, I'm not possible. But anyways, the bill about the medible forms, oils, brownies, so forth, that's 5104, House Bill 5104. The other one, like I said, is 4271, and then Senate Bill 660. So we'll have to see. At any rate, that's an update on the legislation here in the House of Michigan. Lots of stuff going down there. They took quite a bit of testimony from patients and caregivers, different groups from around the state, and they had to break it up into 2 sessions to be able to include everyone. So definitely appreciate the House taking time to hear word on these bills, hear people's concerns. That's nice. There's still time for you to make a comment, to call your local legislator in order to do so. I know that some of the workers of this bill, like Irwin or Colton, it might be your favorite to call, but you want to call the one that you live in. All right, so I got some other news here. Did you guys hear about Uruguay? Country of Uruguay, small South American country, being the first country to legalize cannabis. Obviously, you've had pot shops in like the Netherlands and so forth, but this is the first country to actually legalize marijuana, not just for the possession, which they'd already decriminalized marijuana possession in that country some time ago. Now they're actually legalizing the production and the sale of cannabis as well. So I guess you could say they're following behind Washington and Colorado when it comes to that, but the entire country passed that. And I thought it was interesting that the major rhetoric behind passing this bill, it wasn't, let's tax and regulate. It wasn't, people just want to have weed or something like that. It was more done on the changing the drug policy in that country so that cartels or drug cartels in that country would not have the upper hand, that they would not be able to use this as a revenue generator for themselves any longer, simply because through legalization it's creating a viable market for the product, and it takes it out of the hands of the black market. And I thought that was kind of interesting that was the president of Uruguay is the one who stated this. That was his main reasoning, according to the press, that he was able or was wanting to make this a reality here, that Uruguay now has recreational marijuana. And I think that's something that we have to look at when it comes to drug policy is, not just are we incarcerating people for the wrong reasons, are we filling up jails with nonviolent, offenders, and so forth, but also, what are we doing on the flip side? When you have an illegal product, it creates an illegal market for that product. I mean, you could take just about anything. If you made baseball cards illegal tomorrow, the value in baseball cards would go up. It's just one of those things that happens when you have a black market. And, sometimes I think that, not having prohibition is the best way to go. And in this type of thing, I think that that's a viable thing. You look at casinos, for example. We have gambling available all across the state now. You can walk into just about any party store or gas station and gamble. You can go to casinos around the state, and so you don't see a lot of illegal gambling going on. It's just not something that you hear about in the news very often. It's because there's a viable market for it. However, if gambling was outlawed, if you took away the lotto and you took away the casinos, chances are you'd have little poker rooms set up all over the state, unlike the charitable ones that we're talking about, of course, but like backroom gambling going on. And it just doesn't happen because it's a regulated thing that's readily available to the public. I wouldn't recommend that we release prohibition on endangered species, but I think for some types of things that are going to continue to be viable or available on the market, something that people are going to continue to want, I think you have to better off take a look at regulating that type of substance versus just outlawing it or prohibiting it for that matter. It creates a market. It creates value in something that shouldn't be there otherwise, or an inflated value at least, on an item that normally should not have that type of money or monetary value given to it. I don't know. I think it's a good thing. So, hey, maybe Uruguay is a new place to go for vacation. Who knows? One of the other things they're talking about in Uruguay is, with having it be legalized, they'll have actual commercial production of this. And not only will it provide that market for their consumers in that country, but also the cost of it should be relatively low compared to its current cost. So again, inflated values. But this looks like it's going to be taken out of the hands of the black market. And it's an experiment, a social experiment, if you will, being dubbed that way, to see, have the rest of the world take a look at this and see, hey, does it really work? And I think Portugal is one of the other ones that's been named recently. Portugal, years ago, decriminalized all drug use. And, since then, they've seen drug crimes. They haven't seen an increase as far as drug-related crimes. And, they've seen people's lives be improved because of this policy versus continuing to incarcerate. They're dealing with this issue with a social type of thing or a health viewpoint. Hey, if someone is on hard drugs, they need to get off of them, need to make a change. Well, let's see what we can do about getting them to some type of therapy, some type of rehab, and that person can go and enroll in that type of therapy without having to worry about being prosecuted. And I think a lot of times, we hear horror stories about people that have overdosed and maybe their friend was afraid to call the police because they didn't want to get in trouble. Meanwhile, they need to have police there, medical attention for someone that's in dire need. And so this type of thing here, it may play out in one scenario, certainly can be played out in many other scenarios. And I think that, the more we take a look at this issue from a health standpoint versus a criminal one, I think that we could have more lives impacted in a positive way, helping people get off from hard drugs and getting them into a more productive way of life. And people are more viable or more willing to be able to do that if they don't have to first, go to jail. And that's kind of the mentality a lot of these people have. So anyways, we'll see how this goes. Like I said, it is kind of a social experiment there in Uruguay. I would expect that, obviously there are people that like marijuana in that country will be happy about that, of course. But it'll also be interesting to see what type of effects it may have on the black market that is occurring in that country up until now. So we'll see. All right, we've got some other news around the country. I'm talking here from tokeofthetown.com. Check out that website if you have time. Looks like there's a lot of different types of legalization measures going around the country. If it's not legalization, it's some type of medical marijuana proposal at least. I know that we've got our neighbors to the south here in Indiana implementing their program here shortly for medical marijuana. I also know that there's a lot of support for medical marijuana provision on the ballot for Ohio, potentially for next year. And then also same thing for the state of Wisconsin. So those are all our neighbors around us. I know that New York also has a potential measure coming up here that they're looking at implementing. And it's sort of like a domino effect of medical marijuana or marijuana in general going on around the country. It's definitely something that's interesting to watch. It's amazing how fast it's moving. I think that the stigma that has gone along with reefer madness for so long really is now finally dying. People are looking at this from a different perspective of either, hey, I don't care, let's tax and regulate it, or hey, that if people need this for medicinal purposes, then they should definitely have it. Along with that, there has been a study that was approved for Epidiolex, which is a CBD-based spray that can be ingested through spraying into the mouth. And this was a study that was approved by the FDA and is specifically for children with multiple sclerosis or suffering from other types of seizures. And this is a study that's being conducted or is now approved to be conducted. And I think that's another one of those types of domino effect things that we're seeing across the country. And really around the world now. Got to include the whole world. There's an interesting article in here. I'm always interested in sports. This is from ESPN. And there's a commentator, Howard Bryant, arguing that the NFL is in position to actually lead a discussion about medical marijuana and the culture of pain maintenance with its players. And again, I'm reading to you from tokeofthetown.com. I think that this is a great thing to talk about. I think this is a great thing for our athletes to take a look at, their doctors as well. There's so many different professional sports players out there that are on long-term pain management programs, and the majority of these are all done with pharmaceuticals. Not to badmouth them in general, but to say that the majority of the pain management types of drugs that are given through pharmaceuticals, they have very much, they're riddled with side effects, and these aren't side effects like having itchy skin. They're side effects like having your kidneys shut down or your liver go bad. And this is something that the majority of professional sports athletes have to deal with, either during their career or after their career is over. And certainly the NFL is the leader in one of those types of things. We're changing the game right now, as you sports fans obviously can see, with things like helmet to helmet and other types of things for players dealing with concussions and so forth. So we should also talk about what do we do after the injury. What is acceptable for these players to have, and what can we do to help improve their lives during their play and then after. And some people might argue and say, well, there's no way that these people can be professional sports athletes and smoke pot. How is a guy going to go out and be able to deliver an A game if he's all out there stoned? Well, certainly, you're not going to have a player out there getting stoned before he goes out to play his game. But we've seen, top NFL players time and time again be busted for marijuana use. So we know that there's players out there that have the ability to perform at the top of their level and then use marijuana when they're not on the field and be able to still come back and play to their best of their abilities. If they're using this for pain management or for some type of medicinal purpose, I think they should be allowed to be able to do that. Obviously in states where they have medical marijuana, like here in Michigan, if you had a Detroit Lions player out there, and he's using medical marijuana in his off time to manage through his pain or through one of his injuries, what's the difference between that and him using some type of pharmaceutical drug like Valium or something like this? Who knows what they might be getting prescribed, but I'm certain that it would be pretty strong painkillers, as you can imagine the extent of the injuries they may receive in the NFL. And, why should they be treated any differently for using this, for using marijuana, instead of using something that could be potentially harmful for themselves? I think that we should have a look at that. Maybe the NFL should take a look at this. Maybe the NHL, obviously hockey's another one. And a lot of these other products out there that are used for pain management, through pharmaceutical companies, are certainly more dangerous, more harmful, addictive, all of the things that are associated with this drug use. And here they could use an alternative that would be potentially just as good for them, as far as good in relieving the pain, but also good for them in a way that's not going to damage their life, or short term or long term. So anyways, and with the regulations right now that they have in the NFL, even if someone was in a medical marijuana state, they could not use medical marijuana to treat their symptoms because the NFL guidelines say so. And maybe that's something we should change. I think it's something we should. All right, moving on. See what else kind of stuff we've got here. All right, there's an article here. Dallas City Council wants to seize the cars of people caught with marijuana. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, that really? I guess it would, there's no medical marijuana provisions in Texas, so there's just no reason to have medical or marijuana at all in Texas. But, taking that, I guess it would just depend on the extent of the marijuana, you would think. I believe that they already have some ability to seize vehicles when they want to. Certainly if someone's using the vehicle to transport illegal drugs, you'd think they'd have the ability to seize the vehicle. I'm not sure what they're trying to accomplish there. Says I'm not going to get into that. right, let's see what else I can pull up here for you. All right, I got a funny story for you. You may have seen this. Passed around lately. Pot causes man boobs. I don't know. This is I don't think so. Uninformed plastic surgeon believes that it might cause man boobs. I can tell you this is from plastic surgeon Anthony Ewan. Says to him, when daily smokers came to him for man boob reduction, the first thing he told them was to stop smoking cannabis. I can't believe that this is actually true. I don't know too many people that would associate, if they have man boobs, with pot use. I think this is quite ridiculous. So, but maybe I would recommend exercise. How about that? Maybe the Ben and Jerry's or the extra hot dog at lunchtime might be your biggest culprit in that sort of problem. So, all right. One more thing for you I want to share. This is from our neighbors to the south, Florida, far neighbors. It says here, the Florida Supreme Court began hearing arguments for and against a proposed medical marijuana ballot initiative. Opponents of the proposal saying that the language is too vague, and the justices seem to take that argument the most seriously. Several agreeing, at least discussion, that the measure is written too broadly. So they basically are trying to get a ballot or something on the ballot for medical marijuana. They might have to go back and rewrite this. We'll have to see what the judges say. But at any rate, it looks like they are trying to move it forward. It says, one of the attorneys who was financially backing the program said, look, everybody here knows that one day medical marijuana is going to be legal in Florida. I guess I agree with that sentiment. So why we are going to pander over the ballot language, obviously ballot language only makes so much. It's the law that gets passed behind the ballot, what's going to happen there, and then how it's enforced really is the biggest thing. So, one of the things I think people need to look at, especially in states that have upcoming medical marijuana measures being proposed, is, how is it going to be distributed, produced, and allowed? What conditions are patients going to be able to access cannabis for? Does it include the conditions that you're concerned with? And then, beyond that, who's going to be able to produce it and who's going to be able to provide it and under what terms? I think those are the biggest things that need to be laid out clearly for people that are affected by this in those states that have upcoming measures. The other stuff that I would give a warning about would basically be for the people that do produce and provide, that it has clear laws that set forth the standards on exactly how that can be done, how much can be handled, exactly, maybe even getting down to specifics like how many clones could be produced instead of just talking about plants, or how many plants in flower, or obviously the more stuff you have regulated, the tougher it can be to enforce that, from a compliance measure. But also, I think it has to be done from a standpoint of protecting people who are in the program. You can have a state like we have here in Michigan where it seemed to be pretty clear. You can have 12 plants, 2.5 ounces per patient, but then we get into these gray areas that we talk about, such as when is the medication actually usable, or when is it considered unusable, and stuff like we previously talked about on the program today. Having edible forms be deemed by a court as an unusable form of cannabis. You would never have dreamed that would be a decision made back when we passed the law in the first place. I think that most people that voted for this measure, the voters that came out, would have known or at least heard about, marijuana in brownies. Well, obviously, okay, then it can be eaten, and it would be considered as a part of the law, or considered that it would be protected. And according to the court case, it's not that it isn't protected by the law, but they're saying it isn't protected by part of the law. And, so that can put people in jeopardy. So these are things that have to be, or should be considered. And, the administration of the law after it's passed, it makes a big impact. So I think we have to take a look at the protections that are written out here very seriously, and so that people can decide, if they want to be involved, and then if they are involved, exactly how they should conduct their practices. So I think that this is something that, they may banter back and forth about the law being too broad and so forth. A lot of people said that about our law here in Michigan, that it was just too broad, too vague, and certainly when you have courts picking it apart like we've had here in this state, it would have been, I wouldn't say it would be nicer to have a stricter form of the law, but it seems like we should have a better administration of the law. We have people that are going to abuse it, and we have people that are going to actually try to be compliant. And I think that, for those folks out there that are trying to be compliant, that we should definitely be able to give them the benefit of the doubt. The law mandates that we do so, but we haven't really seen that stretched across evenly in this state. And I think that maybe more clear parts of the law would potentially help. So they've been, and that's what we're trying to do here through these ballot measures, is provide clarity. Will it actually do that? I guess that remains to be seen. And as long as we're going to continue to argue about, what parts of the plan are usable or unusable, or, if someone should be protected or not when they possess a medical marijuana card, obviously is going to create problems. And this is something that we have to take a look at. Certainly the sentiment of the public, as we're starting to hear more and more about just marijuana being legalized for everyone instead of just being medical, I think that's something else that the courts should have to take weight into, is that the sentiment of the public, when they pass this law, is to provide protection for medicinal purposes. If it's being used for that, then it should be protected by the law. It should be pretty simple that way. So I think the biggest thing is you have to stay within your limits. You need to follow and make sure you're compliant, and do a good job of showing that you're doing that. Will help you. That'd be the best thing for you. So, all right. That's basically what I have for you for this week. There's lots of other stories you can find out there, like I said, on talkwiththetown.com. It's just a good thing to be a part of the Genesee County Compassion Club. We're privileged to be there, and we definitely appreciate all of our members' support through the different programs that we're now able to provide to the community, like I mentioned previously. Also, definitely want to mention that if you're interested, you can get your medicine tested. We have the testing now provided through Iron Labs laboratories, and you can get that done. You can drop off your samples. They will pick them up and take them and get them tested for you. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that as well. But at any rate, that's what I have for you this week. Thanks for joining me on the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Thanks for letting me come in here and speak again, John. Flint Talk Radio, we love being here. You guys have a great week. Try to stay warm and stay healthy. Thanks.